Netflix just dropped the John Wick of anime, but does it live up to the hype? I think it does. Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is the place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. Before we get into Sakamoto days, be sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and let's dive in. So one of my favorite mangas over the last few years has been Sakamoto days. I got into it because I was on Twitter, X, whatever you're going to call it. I call it Twitter. And I saw a post, a cool cover of manga, and at the time I had just gotten the Shonen app, and I was just really diving into things like Kaiju number 8. I'd also been going to Books Kinokuya in New York City to sort of like really get into manga, because at the time, this is before Absolute DC and the Ultimate Universe in Marvel, where a lot of books in Western comics weren't particularly great, to be honest, at least in the big two, which is Marvel and DC. So I was into manga. I would go and pick things up. So I was like, you know what, let me give this a shot. They had a bunch of chapters available on the Shonen app, and I was like, let me dive in. And then I got into it, and I was like, this is amazing. I'm also in my 30s, so that officially makes me an unk.
Old as for this club, not for the earth.
And I think my taste in manga and anime these days, like with Sakamoto days and Kaiju number 8, is about people sort of getting to that age of 30 and trying to figure their lives out. And Sakamoto days, if you don't know, is about a retired hitman, a legendary hitman, Taro Sakamoto, who is retired after meeting the love of his life. And he's sworn off killing, and he's gained a little weight, as we all do when we fall in love and we're comfortable. And his life comes back to haunt him in some ways. He's found to be alive, and some people resent him, and it's awesome. I love the book. It's John Wick meets slice of life. So when I found out Netflix was doing a anime adaptation, one, I was a little scared because as a JoJo fan, they didn't quite handle JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in the best way when they had Stone Ocean. So I was a little, I was cautiously optimistic, but still, excited. And I was excited when I saw the trailer. I know some people, especially recently, when they released the opening scene, a lot of people were complaining, and they're like, this is going to flop, which is kind of like the internet these days. And I know I'm saying that on the internet. So, I contribute to those things sometimes. But I am happy to report that the first episode of Sakamoto Days is amazing.
That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
It lives up to what the manga is. And I think the manga is, again, a great combination of John Wick meets slice of life. It is something that I think has a lot of heart, despite being about a hitman. And yes, it's a hitman that doesn't kill. That doesn't mean there's no death or violence in the manga or anime. And I think there's plenty of that, and humor. And I actually watched the dub version of it on Netflix, and I think they added a couple fun little tidbits.
Ugh, get off my dick.
And despite it being really early in the year, and obviously as a Sakamoto fan, I'm a little biased, but I think Netflix has done a great job and has dropped possibly the best debut of 2025 when it comes to anime, and why you should watch it. Like I said, if you're not an anime or manga fan, if you didn't grow up on Dragon Ball Z like I did, or Yu Yu Hakusho, or those things, I think it's something I've recommended it to people that don't even watch anime, or even when it comes to the manga, people who just read regular Western comic books, because I think it's a story that really translates really well. And John Wick is one of those things that most people understand. You're just like, you say that and they get it. And it's like, hey, what if John Wick is happy? He got his happy ending. And yes, they pull him back into that world, but he can't kill. But he still has the skills. He still is the best of the best. And I like that. I like that story, and it translates really well from the manga to the anime. When you're talking about the story, you have Taro Sakamoto and Shin. Shin is a clairvoyant that is still in that hitman life and finds Sakamoto. But in finding him, he realizes he doesn't want to kill him, and he joins him in the convenience store. And I think it's one of those things where, like I said, at this age, you really appreciate a character like Sakamoto. In a lot of animes, it's about the young protagonist who's being, working towards being the best of the best. And I think that still works. But to kind of have something like this, and again, like something like Kaiju number 8, where you have someone not middle age, but sort of at that age where they've made a change in their life. They were different when they were younger, in their 20s, a lot more ambitious, and now they've kind of settled into life. They've figured out life in some ways, and Sakamoto's at that. He's happy. He's eating his noodles, and Shin is still young and still figuring out his place in the world. But he sees what Sakamoto has, and it inspires him, and he wants Sakamoto to have that. He believes he's earned it because he is the greatest, the GOAT of all assassins. And the first episode really is a taste, because if you read the manga, which I highly recommend, you could get it in the Shonen app. It's available in English. There's a couple volumes out in English. It's one of those stories that it scales up, like despite it being just Hitman's, like some of the fights that go on and the epicness of it, it's still able to punch above its weight class when you think about it. When you think about like the Jujutsu Kaisens or the Demon Slayers or the Kaiju number 8s, where they have sort of like a supernatural or a mystical side to it, or a sci-fi side that allows them to get big. But Sakamoto Days does a really good job of that, and it really kind of calls back to action movies like John Wick or The Raid, where they're really able to tip the scales and really have like emotion when it comes to those fight scenes. And Sakamoto Days, at least in the first episode, does that. And I'm hoping when some of the bigger scenes in the manga are translated to the anime, people are going to go insane and eat their words when they said that Sakamoto Days was going to flop. Yeah, I love Sakamoto Days. I'm glad it's exactly what I hoped it would be, and I'm hoping that you'd like it too. So let me know. Did you like Sakamoto Days? Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Peace.